Hey everyone, it's Sunny. So usually I like to take a more professional stance with my videos, but today is going to be a lower quality unscripted video because I'm going to be talking about cheaters. This also means I'm probably going to regrettably be using a more aggressive tone at times, but it's genuinely because I've never understood cheaters at all. In a game like Yu-Gi-Oh! With trivial prizing where you don't get anything for winning besides some internet points, making friends, and personal satisfaction, cheating is something that basically takes away all the positives from the hobby. And it gets even worse when you consider what happens when you inevitably get caught, because you'll be labeled and recognized as a cheater forever. There are people right now in the Edison community that are known for cheating, and they are not respected and permanently have their cheating history held over them. But the thing is, I'm guessing if you cheat, it probably means you care a lot about winning and being considered good, but if you cheat, you're not actually good, and you will never be a true duelist. But basically all I'm trying to say is that it's okay if people think you're not good at Yu-Gi-Oh! It's okay to misplay. These are not shameful things. If you misplay, it just means that you're learning. It breaks my heart to see people feel the need to make excuses for misplaying, and there's definitely something that I think that the community could get better at regarding that. But the whole original point of me making this channel was to feature my misplay so we could learn together. Cheating, however, is shameful. And here today, we have our cheater in question, my DB-rated opponent, JV Hype. That's right, you heard that correctly. This was played on DB ranked ladder. In other words, we are literally playing for nothing. They are cheating over nothing. We are literally cheating for fun at this point. I'm censoring my alt account just because, but if JB Hype sees this and leaks a replay, then I won't really care. It's all good. But yeah, this is game 2 of Hero Frog versus GBs. I won game 1, so GB is going first. They open Mind Crush, My Body, Hoplomus, Chariot, Book, Mirror Force. And they go set Hoplomus, set Chariot, set Book. Now, I actually think this is a relatively reasonable start from the GB player so far. I think you definitely set Chariot no matter what, because even if you set Hoplomus and the Chariot isn't live on turn 1, you definitely want to represent Chariot on turn 3 to stop Gordon Fader. You definitely don't set 5 because you need to represent Tiger or more GB threats, so if you want to play in the Storm, then you can set both Book and Mirror Force, which helps play around Blind MST. But generally, I think that Blind MST turn 1 when you don't have face-up GB is pretty rare because Chariot is the most threatening set. So the choice is between Book and Mirror Force, and Book protects from Prodigy to Substode to Duplock, which would be pretty annoying. The last thing to consider is normal summon Hoplomus to represent Chariot, but then it gets annoying because you give away info that you have Chariot, and then you have to use your Book on anything like Swap Frog, no effect attack, Stratos, no effect, Alias Summon, or Ocean Summon. So ultimately, set Hoplomus, set Book, set Chariot is a solid play in my opinion. You're in a really bad spot against like Cyber Dragon or Prodigy and Enkaius, but your hand is not really equipped to beat that, so it's whatever. You can also use Book and a top deck GB to get back in the game. So here's my first turn. I open Brain Control, Ocean, Caius, Substitute, My Body, and Malicious Edge. So this is a very good Hero Frog hand against GB, and I will admit I definitely draw very good, but my point is that I play bad enough for the GB player to win without cheating. My hand is extremely good. I have Brain and 3 different conversions and a My Body, which is basically like nearly the custom Hero Frog hand against GBs. Maybe I could have had some more heroes like Stratos and Alias. But the issue is that I have nothing to take, so it's not actually good in this situation. So really I have 2 choices. Option number 1 is Full Pass. Full Pass here is decently solid, but the issue is that he kept 3 cards in hand, and I have no defense, which is making me think that he's representing an additional GB threat and Tiger. If he represents Tiger, then it means he represents Sekitor, and a Sekitor hit is game right now, because if he makes Heraclinos, then I have absolutely no way to establish any tribute fodder for my hand, which means I would be bricked. The other option, option 2, is to summon Ocean and swing Protected with My Body. This play would be any set GB that isn't Hoplomus, because 1500 beats every other set GB, but it's also just better into randomly alternate non-engine GBs that they might play, like Reaper or Set Morphing Jar. The issue is that it's really bad into Hoplomus because I tag out the Hoplomus, and it's also really bad into a bunch of other things like Wabaku or Hedgeguard or even a Test Ape. But more importantly is that I'm just not playing at the level of my opponent, because game 1 it kind of seemed like my opponent wasn't the most serious player based on some of the plays they made. So just assuming that the set card is any GB that isn't a Hoplomus is kind of naive by me, so risk reward wise it's actually pretty trash to summon Ocean attack. But I was thinking that if it is a set GB, then I can My Body defense, and then it's a pretty good play for me. Either way, I misplay in my opinion, so already my opponent is playing better than me at this point. They tag out the Hoplomus into Samnite, and honestly there's an argument to go Sekitor because you already have Chariot, but Samnite is already pretty good because it is better if they commit to stop the attack, since Sekitor is a win condition against frogs and all win like Dragon Turbo. So here's a turn where they mess up. They draw the Test Ape for a turn, and unrelated, but this is the reason why I don't like Test Ape in GBs, because if this is a GB, then the game is like won. But there's also an argument for the Test Ape in that it maintains board presence without using back row, but typically people aren't really setting in GBs unless they're losing hard, in which case floating into a GB doesn't really help you, unless you have another one in hand to make Izaris. But that's besides the point, sorry. So they hit into the ocean, but instead of searching Laquari or Bestiari or a second GB here, they search a second Chariot. This is a massive misplay in my opinion because they know I'm playing Hero Frog, and there is no deck in Edison that steals more monsters than frogs. Brain Control, Enemy Controller, Soul Exchange, Creature Swap also, it's so bad to represent only 1 GB against frogs in a matchup because it means you lose super hard to any one of these cards, and frogs can play up to 10 of them, with most lists playing between like 3 and 4. So it's pretty likely for them to have at least one of these. But because they search a second Chariot here and they set second Chariot instead of setting the Mirror Force, it means they lose super hard to the play I make on my turn. Also, they tag into the Laquari. I don't know about this either, hindsight is 2020, but since you have Chariot and Protection, I probably would have gone Retiari just to deny Miracle access. It just feels like an overall safer play to me than playing around top deck Heavy Storm into Stratos or Alias. So, I top Miracle, which is a pretty insane top deck for me, I can't lie, but say it with me. Cheaters never win. I draw good because cheaters do not win. Anyways, I do a couple things here, seeing as they didn't Tiger me last turn. I'm now pretty sure they don't actually have Tiger, or they just don't play Secutor, which is another option. And their hand is just big because they don't want to play into Heavy Storm. Basically, what I mean by this is that if I yoink the Laquari, it's pretty insane for me because they completely run out of pressure. The other reason I'm pretty sure they have no other GB is because they just didn't summon one last turn, and there's basically no reason not to summon one. Like, if I had Gorz or Fader, then you can just tag your Samnite into Bestiari, and then just tag into Geyseris. Geyseris pops my Gorz, or my Fader, or Trag, or whatever it is. So, I go Brain, and they book. This is why you don't search second Chariot last turn. You search for second GB. If you search for second GB here, you still represent Chariot, but now instead of having 2 set Chariots that aren't live, you have multiple points of pressure that threaten into Geyseris, and you have defense, and you still have Chariot. So the current position is just so comedically trash for my opponent. These are the games that people watch and then call GB a trash deck, by the way. But now, since I can't go Brain Caius or Brain Sub, my only play is to sub into Miracle. So I swing over Laquari, swing with Ab-Zero in the pass. Or I set my body. But now we get to the cheat turn. They set their Test Tape, but then they take back their first set Chariot and set Mirror Force instead and then say Accident. Now that I'm here, there's a chance that they have Alzheimer's or something and they genuinely forgot that their set card was Chariot and not Mirror Force, and then I'm just flaming them for no reason. But if that's a situation, I'll just apologize in advance, and this entire video is just completely my bad. But first of all, this happens in like 1 in 10-ish matches to me on DB Ranked where they just like take back a set card and reset something, and I just never check because I genuinely don't care. Accidents do happen. These things, I've personally misclicked and taken back a set card by accident, and then I'll just say check the replay afterwards just to prove my innocence. But really, I would never check because I just like to assume the good in people. But my opponent in this situation is not only bad at playing GBs, they also just suck at cheating. The only reason I checked the replay is because the set card being Mirror Force didn't make any sense to me. Last turn, if the set were Mirror Force, then there would be no better time to Mirror Force than to Mirror Force to Ab-Zero when you're not trading any cards for it. And because every other card Ab-Zero clears is going to be less efficient than Mirror Force on an open board. Maybe they hard read my body, but it was definitely very suspicious. So I checked the replay, and it was sadly a cheater. And the worst part is that they wouldn't even have had to cheat if they just played the last turn correctly. Like, imagine if they just searched second GB represented Chariot and then Mirror Force a swap and Charioted the Ab-Zero. The game would be completely over, but instead we're here getting flamed by me in a YouTube video. But yeah, I have my body set to play around Geyseris, and I was pretty sure that was just going to win me the game. But on their turn, they draw Prison, and they have my body for my body, and then they Chariot my Ab-Zero. So I'm kind of eating shit here, and it's all good because I have 2 Dreamworms in the graveyard, which means I will have Tribute Fodder for my Caius no matter what. And I also have Storm. So even though it's possible that the first set is Protection at this point, I still go for the Storm. On my turn, I draw Stratos, and then after seeing the Mirror Force, I get so confused because I'm not flipping on my 0, which is why we're here. But Storm and Caius is basically GG. It clears the entire board. They set their hand, which is just another confusing thing. They Mind Crush me with no cards in your hand, which you can't do. Genuinely, I do think that this is probably a case of just not knowing the ruling. I don't think that they're cheating here, but the track record isn't good. Usually, I give the benefit of the doubt, but it's just kind of suspicious in this case because they are a known cheater at this point. Anyways, the game is over. I search Prodigy to make sure my edge is alive in case something crazy happens, like Torrential into GB into Soul Release or something, but it's basically over at this point. The lesson of this video is not to cheat, homies. It's okay to misplay. It is okay to play poorly. Cheating is just too sorry, though, so please do not do that. Up until now, this video has talked about very obvious hard cheating where you swap your back row, but there are other things I consider cheating, like extreme slow playing. If you play in real life and you blatantly stall until time without a play and then burn them, that's really not cool. These types of not exactly hard cheating, but rule exploits are pretty shameful. I have personally had someone do a 7-minute think in main phase, only for a time to be called, and then my opponent summons Deep Sea Diva to make Android. This cost me top cut at a Starlight Stratos tournament, by the way. So, like, I'm pretty bitter about it, to be honest. But generally, back then I was more naive and I just didn't know how to call judges. This is for sure cheating, in my opinion. And if you do this, you are never going to be the king of games. Because, like, just think about it. Can you imagine Yugi Moto being like, hold up, thinking out of main, and you just sit there with no play? And then the judge goes, time in the round. And then Yugi just looks you dead in the eye and says, oh, sorry, man. I didn't want to take the match that way. Not really, right? So let's just play within the rules, yeah? Also, last thing before I end off, I just wanted to start a podcast or podcast type videos, and I do need a name for this. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. And that's about it. Bye.